All right, the Phillies Mailbag is out. Frank Klose from 97.3 ESPN.com. And I guess we'll start with this, Frank. Are the Phillies in the race? Would you classify them as in the race right now?
Well, it's kind of a stretch at this point. I think a lot depends on what happens with maybe the Washington Nationals. You know, if you look at the Cubs, they seem like they're poised to sort of take that one wild card spot. Now, the Nationals just lost 4 games in a row before they won their last 2. I think the Phillies would have to get within like 3 games of the Nationals and then really take care of business in that 5-game series for that to make a difference, because the Nationals are going to close against the Cleveland Indians, who, of course, are fighting for a wild card spot of their own, and I think that they're going to be motivated to play well that final series. And then the Phillies play the Marlins, although, of course, they haven't been able to take care of business with the Marlins yet. So, I mean, they're very much on the outskirts looking in, but there's a few scenarios to suggest that they could kind of hang in there. And I think at the end of the day, you're going to think about those lost games to the Marlins. It's just going to make all the difference.
Always, man. You always look back to those games against the Marlins. We asked that question because we were kind of surprised. You're 2 back, playing the Braves. Nola's on the mound, and it looked like a pretty weak crowd there last night. So it essentially seems, Frank, like the fans don't think that this team is in a race.
They don't. And one thing I actually heard them advertising on the broadcast was that if you sign up for season tickets now, you'll get priority access for season tickets. I'm like, I don't know if that's going to be a good sales pitch for a fan base which does not really seem to believe. I think they still enjoy a lot of the players like Bryce Harper and Aaron Nola, but I think even the most committed fans are resigned to this kind of not being the year.
All right, Frank, your first question I want to roll into with Nola, and that is the current pitching staff. Nola struggled. They haven't won, 4 straight times that he has been on the mound. Is it because of the other pitching around him? Why do you think Nola has struggled?
Well, you know, if you really break down those 4 starts, it was just this past 2 that were tough. He lost the game against the Marlins where he went 7 innings and allowed 3 runs. That's a game you're supposed to win. The game after that, he went 6 1/3. He allowed 1 earned run, and somehow that ended up being an 11-5 loss. So the first 2 games of the 4-game losing streak we're not really on Nola. I'll give him that Cincinnati last week didn't go great. That's when he only went 4 innings and allowed 5 earned runs. But in a way, yesterday was still kind of winnable. I mean, when the game started, you're watching that first inning unfold, and it looks like he's about to get shelled, and then they get the double play. They get out of the inning, and, you know, even he gives up a couple more runs following inning, and it's only 4-0. I mean, he hung in there. He went 6. He only allowed 4. That game was not out of reach until Nick Pivetta comes in, and I saw Pete talking about that play, where he makes the bad throw to first, and then boom, 3-run home run. Well, then the game's over. So I think last night, once Nick Pivetta came into the game, it was like, all right, forget it, we're done.
Frank, if the Phillies do wind up making the postseason, I'm sure we would look back and put JT Realmuto among the top 1, 2, or 3 reasons. Certainly his offense in the second half and even his throwing runners out has been spectacular, and he's come as advertised. And so there's been some speculation about what kind of contract he'll be able to sign in the offseason. So I ask you, and so does John on the website, what would it take for the Phillies to get JT Realmuto, and do you think they'll wind up re-signing him?
Yeah, this has gotten a lot of attention lately, and I think the reason is fans are seeing JT Realmuto in his prime, and they're seeing that he's everything that was as advertised, as you said, when the Phillies gave up their best prospect for him. Well, first and foremost, I'm going to say that since you gave up your best prospect to get him, you must re-sign him. That was a very high price to pay if it's only going to be 2 years of Realmuto. I think they signed him with the idea that they would try to extend him. If you remember right afterwards, Matt Klentak said that, well, you want to date a little bit before you get married, to make an analogy like that. I think he does. I think he, did wait and see a little bit, but they had to have thought that they were going to have to try to extend him, and certainly you're watching him now. He's really the captain of that whole team, basically, if they assign team captains in baseball. So you got to do it. And the question is really just how much and for how long. I saw a couple articles recently. Kevin McCormick of Sports Talk Phillies had him at 4 and 100. Corey Simon had him 5 and 115 yesterday on NBC Sports Philadelphia. So I think he's going to be a $20 million plus player. You kind of wonder about the risk. Now, will they go 5 years on a catcher? You know that's the most demanding position, and we know that of all the catchers in baseball, you might be comforted by the fact that maybe there'll be a designated hitter that can help spell his body a little bit in the future. But I think that I have to take the foundation of this team.
I was going to ask you, because the last big catcher extension I can remember was maybe like Joe Mauer and the Twins on the 8-year, $180 million deal. And I think the Twins were probably regretting that 3 years in. So does it make sense to maybe pay him more money per year up front to have shorter years?
Well, the way that the competitive balance tax is structured, you're going to get dinged on the average annual value, not what you pay them. And the Phillies have all kinds of money to pay. So I think that you're more worried that the average annual value will hold you down as you get to the later parts of that contract. And I mean, Joe Mauer with the Twins, Joe Mauer only caught 3 of those years. So he became a first baseman, and he became a very expensive first baseman for the production he was giving at that time. So you kind of know that you're going to get the downturn at the end. I mean, Realmuto is at 28 right now. So you're looking at, if you sign him to 5 years, you're talking year 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. By the end of that, you're not going to get the same kind of guy. Hopefully there's a DH that you can spell him. Maybe you can play him at first base a little bit.
No, not hopefully. I don't want to see the DH.
I don't want it either, but I've kind of resigned to the fact that it's coming. So, I think that's going to be a reality in the National League sooner than later, and that might make you feel a little bit better. I mean, they'll have Harper. I think they kind of thought that when they signed Harper, too, that'll be some maneuverability there.
Last one, Pivetta, you mentioned him. What's his role moving forward? Tony wants to know what's going to happen with him. Can the Phillies keep throwing him out there?
My answer to this is no. I don't think the Phillies can afford to have Nick Pivetta on their team next year. So we've already seen that he's not good enough to be in this starting rotation. That's, of course, filled with holes. He's not good enough to be in this bullpen, also filled with holes. So then what's he going to be? Now, I think a lot of people in baseball agree he's got some talent. He's got a lively arm. And the question will be, are the Phillies going to be contenders next year, or are they going to be a team that can sit and play games and wait around to find if somebody's good or not? And I don't think that they can be that person next year. If you look at the past, one thing that I think of is Gavin Floyd, who was a promising young arm, and the Phillies ended up trading him towards Freddie Garcia, who didn't even pitch for them. But the Phillies might not have made the playoffs in 2007 if they were committed to seeing Gavin Floyd for one more year. Not that Floyd didn't have a bad career. He certainly had his moments in the major leagues and was a nice starting pitcher for a while.
Didn't he pitch a no-hitter?
I can't remember.
I'm sorry.
You are the king of bringing things up and then don't actually have the answer to
Well,
them.
that's why it's a question. Not he did pitch a no-hitter, but I thought he did.
I don't remember it. I know he got a complete game the day Aaron Rowan smashed his face because it was only 5 innings shortened by rain. But Floyd was a nice pitcher. But if the Phillies had him and they had to deal with his down years, they wouldn't have made the playoffs in 2007.
No-hitters, by the way, for Floyd.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
A couple of them. He
Two
flirted.
near misses in 1 month span.
He flirted with no-hitters, but never had one.
All right.
Yeah. So he had a nice career, and if you're the Phillies, you don't feel bad about that because you made the playoffs in 2007, and you might not have if you put up with his development. I think somebody will take Pivetta back as part of a trade. It's not saying you're getting rid of him per se. It's just that somebody might be in a better position to sort of wait out his development. And he might pay dividends for somebody else down the line. But I just don't think that if you're the Phillies next year, you can afford to tie up roster spaces on him or Vince Velasquez. Maybe you want to try one of them in Eflin, who seem to have given you the most. But you really just can't have those question marks on your roster if you're going to be a contender. And really, that's the story of the 2019 Phillies.
Frank Klose, at Frank Klose on Twitter. His mailbag runs, of course, every Tuesday right here on the Sports Bash as the Phillies tonight against the Braves, 3 back. Are they in the race? If they lose tonight, probably not. All right, Frank, take care, pal.
Thanks, guys.